Today's lesson, oneness, the destination you never left. We are moving into the second quarter of 2021. And so the book of the month or the book of the quarter for April, May, and June is Oneness. The author is John Grieven. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. And this book is a very easy read. It is a simple book and yet very profound in providing a new awareness of the oneness that we are. The Science of Mind textbook, written by Dr. Ernest Holmes, our founder, has chapter 6 devoted to man's relationship to the spiritual universe. And in that chapter, there are many quotes and concepts presented about unity. For example, on page 121, while a drop of water is not the ocean, it does contain within itself all the attributes of the limitless deep. I like to use that also as using a metaphor regarding the body. There are heart cells, liver cells, stomach cells, pancreas cells, skin cells. And all those cells are one body. And if I take that as a metaphor and expand it, it's true for all of us. While we may not see that spoken to each day based on the divisiveness that is around, those are false beliefs, because indeed we are one, just like every cell of the body, uniquely serving. There is one body, and we are one humanity, and we are one earth, and we are one universe. It is all interconnected, and we are all of the one, like the drop of water in the ocean. On page 123 of the Science of Mind textbook, now keep in mind that Dr. Ernest Holmes was writing this in the 1930s and 40s, and it becomes so much more ubiquitous that we understand that whether we're talking about a mountain or a molehill, it's all energy. It's all energy. And it's just energy taking a different form, whether it's the molehill or the mountain, whether it's the ocean, whether it's the air. It is all energy taking different forms. And so it is with each one of us. God, love, light, manifested through each one of us uniquely. We are one with it all, one with the infinite intelligence, and one with the universal mind. I also like to use the visual of, so inside a molecule is an atom, and inside the atom is a neutron and a positron, and inside those is actually a quark. And science continues to drill down into the micro worlds. And if I represent myself as a quark, and that quark looking back at me, it's sort of the same thing as me looking at the universe, which is the background behind me. It is all one. But we may not feel that we experience that. The truth is, there is nothing but unity. And Dr. Ernest Holmes mentions nothing is going to happen to us that does not happen through us, again, because of the oneness that we all are. So now let me put this in the context of today. Going back to a more physical level, we compare where we are today to last April. April 11th last year, we didn't have a vaccine available. We know more about COVID than we did then. We have defined COVID protocols to help us exercise safety with one another. And we look to the light where we begin to see, talking about openings and how to be safe in those openings. And so we're perhaps not feeling so confined as we were last April. However, it's been a long time since we've been together at the center, a long time since everything is wide open without masks, people freely connecting with one another. And I suspect, based on my experience at the university, that people are tired, frustrated, depleted, anxious, lonely, and I'm sure many other experiences. And still, change is coming. Now, the science of mind philosophy, of course, change your thinking, change your life. Change, we know, is the only constant. But the change that we're all experiencing now is not just, it's a total societal change, and change continuing to move regardless of how we may feel. And I like to look at this sometimes as there are those based on water is rushing down a river. And for some of us, we may feel like, I don't want to change. I want to be in the comfort of what I know, of what I have control over. And yet standing in the river resisting continues to cause weariness. So frequently in my own mind, I'm looking for, how can I find my floaty, my inner tube, to float and ride down this river of change? How do I leverage the force of the water and the river to navigate myself down the river, around the areas that, of course, I may see a log up ahead, so I'm like a rudder in a boat, maneuvering, looking ahead, and yet moving with all the change that is happening. Now, I'm going to use some other analogies. You know, when we lift weights, lifting weights with my hands, we know that we build muscle in our triceps and forceps. And of course, when you want to build strength, you do that as a practice. You do that over time. You can't instantly build those biceps and forceps when you need them. Instead, it's the practice of lifting those weights that build your strength. And so it is with your spiritual practice. With a spiritual practice, you want to be connecting. You want to be perhaps reading, growing your consciousness, growing your understanding of the oneness that you are, the love that you are, the peace that you are. You want to be connecting to your higher power, whatever that means for you. And you want to do that on a daily basis. So like lifting weights, you will have the connection. You will have the faith. You will have the understanding when you need it. So, of course, whether it's lifting weights or doing spiritual practice, a spiritual community can help motivate, can help support your spiritual practice. So I know that I have several of you who are on live stream today. Looks like there's 35 people watching now. I would love for you to put into the chat, where do you draw your strength from when you need it? So I'll go on doing a little bit, but I would love to see in the chat, where do you draw strength when you need it? Here at the Center for Spiritual Living, we have learned that we're not just a place, we're not just a building. We are a community, we are one, and we are connected. And the Center for Spiritual Living is here for a place to find that connection, that support, that strength when you need it. And, you know, building relationships, it's like, I need a bunch of friends. We all know that that doesn't happen instantaneously, but that friendships are built over time, just like lifting those weights. And so the Center for Spiritual Living is here for us to develop our knowingness of the truth with a capital T, and to remind each other that we are a reflection of the love and the light and the peace that we are. And if you're feeling disconnected, I invite you to reach out. We do have a directory, and invite you in one form or another. If you haven't talked to somebody you used to talk to on Sundays, pick up the phone, email somebody, text somebody, and connect. All right, let's see. Do I have in the chat here some responses? Not yet. So for some folks, drawing strength is drawing strength from faith, growing and deepening faith. For some people, drawing strength is indeed the community, creating friendships, spending time with one another, creating experiences together, reminding each other of the love. For some, drawing strength is in a passion or a hobby or a talent, expressing creativity that might be music or art, or being in nature or fitness. Whatever your hobby is, finding your grounding and being able to be in the awareness of who you are and gaining strength from that knowingness. I've been in several webinars that continue to talk about resilience. And what it continues to come back down to is resilience can be practiced by mindfulness and meditation. And why is that? Scientifically, a constantly distracted mind is an unhappy mind. Fulfillment comes in being centered and balanced and aware of the life that is unfolding in front of you. Being present in the moment, not always distracted in our mind here and there. That's not where we find contentment and fulfillment. So I see some responses now. Ginny draws her strength through her daily practice of meditation and readings, expanding consciousness and being in the presence and the awareness. Beautiful. And Leanne says, I find strength in walks, in nature, in friends, in prayer, meditation, and with being together, even this morning virtually. Yes, just the knowing that we are connected here in this one message coming together in consciousness. And Julie says, I draw strength through the universal one by centering and doing meditation, connecting through the inner circle of loved ones, and certainly family, the connection with family and all the bonds and experiences had there. The love is just immediately readily available to us if we will spend the time to move ourselves into that awareness and what's happening in our heart when we think about our loved ones. And for Wendy, it's having meaningful and loving connections. And that can be in conversation, that can be in experience, that can be the walking together, the being together. And for Andy, it's quieting his mind and connecting with the truth, reminding himself of who he truly is, talking to the self with a capital S. Yes, the reflection back. And for Jean, the connection with friends and family and community. With Linda, connections with others and meditation. Again, the awareness and being present. So as I mentioned, the book, Oneness, The Destination You Never Left, very much while I'll call it the philosophy of this book is about non-duality, oneness, non-duality. It's very profound. In one of the first couple chapters, it starts with, if you can imagine the word nowhere. So, if you had a pen and paper and you write down the word nowhere, our mind essentially pays attention to the letters in that word. What we don't look for or pay attention to or focus on is the space between those letters. And if we focused on the space between those letters, we might literally find now here. The only difference between nowhere and now here is the space between those words. And the space between what I'll call the content, the letters, the space in between those letters is where infinite potential exists. So now let's take that and think about that in our life. As we wake up in the morning, whether it's the news or the distractions or the things that are happening in our life, our mind is constantly busy and caught up in the content and not the space in between. But the space in between is where there is infinite potential. So the author of this book wrote a poem that I thought did a nice job summarizing a little bit about the book. So I'm going to read the poem. Normal space. What a miracle it is. Sitting between every cell, space is. Floating between every blade of grass, it is. Filling the lungs of every creature. Untouched by the simple flow of a breeze or a massive collision of suns, the space is. The planets, the suns, the comets, creation, thoughts, in all their forms dancing within simple space. Dependent on it, and yet not touching it. A fitting analogy, but as beautiful as space could seem, the mind would get tired of just looking at it. Why? Because the space is not content, and the mind is designed for content. Yet, if you were the space, how easily the content could be enjoyed. Rather than fearing the content, or that something would be missing or coming or going, the momentary appearances of content are effortlessly allowed to be. Seeing without condition or expectation. You are not seeing the space. You are the space. The space of presence, awareness. The book does an excellent job, and again, very simple read to step you through, well, to find out who you are, you have to find out who you are not. You are not your body. You are not your thoughts. You are not your feelings. You are a presence which cannot be defined by the mind. Because presence is not an object. Presence is not content. The mind doesn't really comprehend infinity. I mean, we can look at the space, like the background behind me, and it's really hard to get our mind around infinity. And so it is with presence and awareness. You are the presence of awareness, and you are the awareness of presence, of being. And in that awareness, and in that presence, is wholeness. Wholeness, oneness. There is no lack, no limitation, no loneliness, Because as you become aware of the presence, the awareness of the presence and the presence of awareness, it is the wholeness that you are, the love, the beauty, the peace. It's the healing presence, because there's nothing to heal in that wholeness. It still remains whole, untouched by time, space, or events. It's the mind that makes all these meanings out of all of that content. Your presence, your awareness is always on. Everything else appears in your awareness. So everything out there, well, I say out there, but it's not really out there. Everything is just an appearance, and we are just the awareness and the presence that is forever now. And now. And now. The presence is always now. It doesn't have a past or a future. The presence is always now. And as you become aware of the presence and become the presence of awareness, there's infinite possibilities. When you understand that you are not your circumstances, when you truly see your perspective on oneness, on wholeness, on unity, we practice that awareness. We practice being the presence. I was in a webinar just this last week of people in academics in general talking about how do we build resilience? How do we support our students, our staff, our faculty? How do we support one another? And while they didn't say it in spiritual terms, they said it more in psychological terms. The best way to support somebody is to hear them, to see them. They may not be ready for advice or moving on, or they may be ready for that. They will ask for it. But being the presence is healing to somebody who's struggling. Being aware, being present, being witness to the person who needs support. Our annual theme is healing is revealing our wholeness. And when we truly understand the presence and the awareness that we are, and sharing that in an experience with another, we are healing and revealing our wholeness and our oneness, a destination we never left. Namaste.